Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. We are completely unpacking the Sir Chris Tutorial's physics guide today, specifically zeroing in on mechanics. Think of this as your high-yield cheat sheet. It's designed to build a rock-solid foundation for high-stakes exams like WAEC, JAMB-UTME, and Post-UTME. If you're a focused learner looking to just cut through the noise and get straight to the stuff that actually scores marks, well, you're in exactly the right place.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, scalars versus vectors. 2, resolving vectors. 3, linear motion and suvat. 4, motion under gravity. And 5, decoding motion graphs. Let's get right to it.
Before we dive headfirst into the math, I really want you to internalize this quote from the source material. Excellence is not a talent, it is a decision. Seriously, mastering physics isn't about having some innate magical genius. Not at all. It is simply about following a structured process, understanding the rules of the game, and deciding to put in the work. You've already made that decision just by being here. So, let's get to work.
All right, part 1, scalars versus vectors, the foundation.
The guide makes this brilliantly simple distinction here that honestly trips a lot of people up. A scalar quantity has magnitude only. Think of it as just a number and a unit, like saying your bag weighs 5 kilograms. No direction is needed there, right? A vector, on the other hand, demands both magnitude and direction to be fully described. If it inherently has a direction attached to it, boom, it's a vector. Direction is the absolute key separator here.
The guide lays out exactly what examiners love to test, right here on this table. Take a look at these pairs. Distance is just a length. It's a scalar. But displacement? That's a straight line distance in a very specific direction, making it a vector. Speed is scalar, but velocity is a vector. And guys, here is the biggest trap of them all. Mass versus weight. Mass is just the amount of matter, a scalar, measured in kilograms. Weight is the actual force due to gravity, acting downwards on that mass. So it's a vector, and it's measured in newtons. Never, ever mix those up.
Moving on to section 2, resolving vectors, breaking down forces.
This brings us to vector resolution. By definition, this is the process of breaking a single diagonal vector into 2 perpendicular components. We're almost always talking about the horizontal x-axis and the vertical y-axis. Think with pulling a heavy rolling suitcase by its strap. You're pulling up and forward at the exact same time. You're basically taking a complex angled force and turning it into 2 simple straight lines. And let me tell you, this is one of the absolute most critical skills you're going to need for solving projectile motion and equilibrium problems.
The guide lays out a literally foolproof 3-step mathematical process for this. Step 1, identify your main force, F, and its angle, theta, to the horizontal. Step 2, to find the horizontal pole, you use cosine, so Fx equals F cosine theta. Step 3, to find the vertical pole, you use sine, Fy equals F sine theta. So, if a 50 Newton force acts at 30 degrees, your horizontal is 50 cos 30 and your vertical is 50 sine 30. It really is that systematic. But let's flip that around for a second. What if you have the 2 perpendicular components and you need to find the main diagonal vector? This is a classic JAMB exam trap. How do you find the resultant of 2 perpendicular vectors? Well, you definitely don't just add them together. Because they're at a perfect 90-degree angle, you always use Pythagoras' theorem. The resultant, r, equals the square root of a squared plus b squared. And to find the angle, you simply use the tangent function.
Next up, section 3, linear motion and suvat, the mathematical toolkit.
Here they are, the legendary 4 equations of uniformly accelerated motion. We call them the suvat equations, based on the variables they use, s for displacement, u for initial velocity, v for final velocity, a for acceleration, and t for time. The guide heavily emphasizes that you absolutely must memorize these cold. We've got v equals u plus at, then s equals ut plus 1/2 at squared. Next, v squared equals u squared plus 2as. And finally, s equals 1/2 of u plus v, all times t.
Okay, so how do you actually know which of those 4 equations to pull out of your toolkit? The strategy outlined in the source is absolute magic. It's foolproof if you follow these exact steps. First, list out all the variables you're given in the word problem. Second, identify the specific unknown you're trying to find. Third, and pay attention because this is the magic step, identify the one variable that is not given and not asked for. Every single SUV equation is missing one variable. Just select the equation that is missing that exact variable.
To really hammer this home, let's look at this exam intel straight from the source. Always write out UVAST. Identify the missing variable.
Pick the right SUVAT equation. Do not guess. Excellence comes from a systematic approach, right? If you just guess the equation, you're going to waste precious time and lose marks. Trust the process.
Section 4 already. Motion under gravity. The rules of freefall.
The beautiful thing about vertical motion is that gravity simply provides a constant acceleration that we can plug straight into our SUVAT equations. Free-falling objects near the Earth accelerate downward. Now, for high-stakes regional exams like WAEC and JAMB, this value, g, is generally taken as exactly 10 meters per second squared, unless the specific question explicitly tells you to use 9.8. Using 10 keeps the math super clean and helps you avoid silly calculation errors.
So, what are the golden rules for tossing something, like your keys, straight up into the air? First, establish your direction convention. Let's take upward as positive. Because gravity always pulls down, your acceleration a is going to be negative 10 meters per second squared. Here is a massive physical concept. At the absolute maximum height of a throw, right before it falls back down, the object actually stops for a split second, meaning its final velocity, v, is 0. Conversely, if an object is dropped from rest, its initial velocity, u, is 0. Oh, and a super quick shortcut for the time to reach maximum height? Just divide your initial velocity by gravity. Easy.
Hold up. Let me pause right here and drop another crucial piece of exam intel from Sir Chris. Mixing signs is the #1 error in this topic. Always state which direction you take is positive. Seriously, if you say up is positive, your initial velocity is positive, but your acceleration is negative, you have to be totally consistent throughout the entire problem, or the math will absolutely punish you. Finally, Section 5, Decoding Motion Graphs, Visualizing Movement.
The guide puts the two most common graphs side by side right here, and man, does it make the difference instantly clear. On a distance-time graph, the slope, or the gradient, at any single point equals the speed at that instant. But on a velocity-time graph, the visual language changes completely. The slope there equals the acceleration. Furthermore, the geometric area under a velocity-time graph equals the total displacement or distance. You have to be able to instantly recognize the difference between these two.
Let's zoom in on that velocity time graph a bit further, so you can literally read it like a book. A straight line pointing upward with a positive slope means uniform acceleration. A perfectly horizontal line means you have constant velocity, which translates to 0 acceleration. A straight line pointing downward with a negative slope, that's uniform deceleration. And remember, if you calculate the geometric area of the triangles and rectangles tucked under that line, you get the total displacement.
All right. Keeping you on your toes with a classic post-UTME trick question here. We just learned the area under a velocity time graph is displacement. But what does the area under a force time graph represent? Is it work? Nope. The answer is impulse, which is the change in momentum. Examiners absolutely love testing these specific graph area relationships.
As we start to wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this really encouraging reminder from the very beginning of the source material. Physics is not hard. It has been made to seem hard. Trust the process. You now have the foundational tools, guys. You know exactly how to break down vectors, you have a foolproof SUVAT strategy, and you can decode the graphs. The process works if you just apply it systematically.
So here's the million-dollar question. What do you do next? You've got the mechanics toolkit firmly in hand. Are you ready to take these exact same tools and conquer projectiles and circular motion in our next session? Because literally everything we learned today is a stepping stone for tomorrow. Keep reviewing your notes, practice those 4 equations, and I will see you in the next explainer.